So I needed to get this old tiller running. I believe it's about 20 years old, and it's a 5 horsepower Briggs S Stratton engine. And of course the gas tank is rusted out because it's been sitting under a waterfall for like the last 10 years on the edge of a roof, so every time it rains it's under a waterfall. The engine was locked up, but I found out it had a stuck intake valve, so I fixed that, and I cleaned up the carburetor and gas tank the best I could, just to see if I could get it to run a little bit. But what I'm going to have to do is, well, the reason I'm going to have to put a whole different kind of carburetor on is because I could probably rebuild the carburetor that's on here, but the gas tank is rusted out. You know, not completely out, but it's barely usable. And the closest to this exact gas tank I could find, which wasn't the exact same tank. I think it was a tank for a little bit older Briggs S Stratton engine, and it was like $100. And I didn't want to spend $100 plus rebuild the carburetor on about a 20-year-old tiller. And I didn't want to go buy a new tiller. Have you seen the price of these things lately? So I decided what I would do is put a different kind of carburetor on there that has a float bowl setup where you just run a gas hose to the carburetor. This setup is the tank is part of the carburetor function. Without the tank, it's not going to work. And I'm not going to spend $100 on a 20-year-old tiller. So I got on Amazon and I found a carburetor for a 5 horsepower Briggs lawnmower for about $12. And it has a, it's that type of carburetor. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to, I have an old lawnmower with a plastic gas tank. I'm going to mount it up here somewhere. But I'm going to have to build an intake manifold to connect this carburetor onto this engine. And that should make the engine run just fine and not have a rusty gas tank problem anymore. Because even if I would buy a $100 gas tank, it's going to rust out again anyway. You can buy an intake manifold that would work for that, but the cheapest one I could find was $30. I'm trying to do this on the cheap. But the wife's saying, hey, get out there and get that old tiller running. I want you to till me a garden. So that's what I'm going to have to do. What's that the old Canadian guy used to say? If she don't find you handsome, she ought to at least find you handy. The fuel tank I'm going to use for this is an old plastic gas tank that I took off of an old Tecumseh lawnmower, and it's about a 6 horse I'm going to use for another project that I will not need the fuel tank anymore, so I'll just use it for this. I'll have to engineer some brackets to mount it in about this position. I think I need to trim the gasket right here. Otherwise this is going to be blocked off. Had to make another bracket here, and then of course I use an old piece of a lawnmower to make that with, and I got lucky here, a little piece of stainless steel on another piece of a lawnmower, and I just used some self-tapping screws. It was perfect. You rarely find something like that. Otherwise I'd have been making another bracket for this. So I took a piece of I believe that was 12-2 electrical solid copper wire and made my linkage here, and it has full off and full on, and my kill wire just barely made it without touching up against the cover. So, and I had to turn this upside down, but off is still off and fast is still fast. It's just upside down. And this isn't the choke anymore. It's this. It seems a little delicate. Don't want to get carried away with it. But I guess now I need to look around on an old lawnmower and find a piece of fuel line to go from here to up under here in the fuel tank. Put in some fuel, and I think I'm ready to give it a try. Okay, let's see what happens.